And we're back, and it is COMP397, and it's winter 2016 semester, and it's week 3, lesson 3, part 2 of our recording. Actually, it should be out of our broadcast. I have to change that later on. I don't know why I put recording. My brain is not working properly today. Hello. All right. Let's talk about what we just talked about. We just basically just reviewed lab 1, or lab 2, I mean. Lab 2 is, you should mostly be done now. For most of you, should have, I have some people who finished. Look, I've got 13 people of our class that have kind of finished off lab 2. So please see if you can finish it off today, like during class if you can. You have another hour before we take off. Our assignment number 1, the dragon though, I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. So who's got a story that they can tell me? I know I've got one. One was really cool I just heard, which was, you know, I want to make an educational game, Tom, about, you know, instead of making an adventure game, I want to make an educational game, and if you make the right choices, you come up with a positive outcome, right? But what if I have more than one positive choice? Well, there's ways around that, and I'm not going to just kind of go over the details now because it's his game. But, you know, you can always use a pickup. You can always pick up additional items. So you can always have a condition to say, I can't win the game even if it's a positive. I'm on the right track, but if I don't have a special item, I can't win the game. Right? There's a way of doing of kind of adding in an additional condition. An example of that would be this: I want to make a game about I have to defeat a creature or some big boss monster, but I can't defeat the boss monster unless I have the Shield of the Ages, right? Which will defend me against the monster's breath, because the monster has bad breath and it'll just kill me, right? Right? So Shield of the Ages creates this, like, you know, breath shield, and now I can pass through. If I don't have that special shield, it doesn't matter what I do. At the end, I'm still going to lose. So that's almost like a 8th negative outcome. And the only way you can make the one positive outcome is if you have that special item that you decide to pick up when it becomes available. And the only way you can get that is it has to be in a certain spot, right, in your game. Like, let's say, hey, do you pick up the shield? Do you look in the chest? You know, that kind of stuff. So you have to actually go through a series of good choices before you get to the end. So it makes the game a little bit more interesting and more realistic. Did you pick up the shield? And there might be other things you pick up too. I need both the sword and the shield. And sometimes people would have seen in the past, it's more complex if you make a game like this, by the way. I'm not telling you should do this. I'm saying you could do this. It just means that your game is going to be more complex to write. Any other ideas that people want to share from a story perspective? You need to make a story for your game, and your story should be kind of thought out right now at this point. You should kind of think about what story you're going to write for your 8 outcomes. 7 bad ones, 1 good one. How do you get to those 8 outcomes, right? And if I review the stuff for the assignment, just really quickly again, so if I was to go to our assignment details here for a second. So here's assignment 1. Remember that what I said was that by next Friday at midnight, right, the details of the game have to be kind of handed in, right? The whole game itself, the working game, and it has to be deployed live on Azure or another cloud service. It's of your choice. GitHub Pages does not count as a cloud service, so please don't think you can deploy on GitHub Pages and that would suffice. It doesn't satisfy my requirements. It's a cloud service with auto deployment is what I'm looking for. Okay, so in this scenario I have 7 bad outcomes and 1 good outcome, and we need to get there. We need to program this stuff with state machines. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's think about that. Anyone else have a story they want to share though before we continue? So anyone have another story idea? How about Sean? Sean, you're too quiet, man. Tell me your story. He's shaking his head. He's like, no, I don't want to do it. Selena. It's like the Super Mario. Oh, wait. Sean says it's like a Super Mario thing. So you can just follow the Super Mario story. So
follow the story.
Like the story, let's say. Maybe
not rip it off. Like, you know,
rip it off, right?
The theme of Super Mario.
Okay, so the Super Mario theme you're going to say, right? That's good. I like your thinking. So, but again, think about, you know, all the pathways for the hero to be successful. Okay, cool. So how do I code that? That's the key. Right? And remember, the code that I gave you online is Impress.js. That's not going to satisfy us. We need to use Create.js. We have to convert this project so it works like Impress.js. And we're going to do that with our state machine. So we don't have a state machine yet, but we're going to make one. Okay, so remember we talked about making a scene class. I need to make a scene class in order for me to have each scene itself, each of the scenes come up, and it'll almost like be another container for me, right, that I'm going to use. Okay, so my scene is going to be a container, right, from my game, that I'm going to use to describe my, my class itself. Now in CreateJS, there is a CreateJS.container class. Okay, that does exist. So you can compartmentalize your game objects inside other containers. So I can have, like, let's say my game object, let's say my label, can be inside of a game container, right? And my game container then can be added to the stage. So I can have everything go inside my scene, which is like container, and my scene would be added to the stage, right? But in order for me to make my scene, I have to have a scene class. And my scene, right, would not be a state, it would be an object type. Because it would be like a game, it itself would be a container, which means it's a game object, therefore it should be an object. Right, so let's make our scene module. We're writing this together here, guys and girls. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a new file, right, in my objects folder. And I'm going to call this scene.ts. Okay, in my scene, I know it's going to be a module, right? It's going to be in my module. So I got to put my module around it first. So I'm going to call this module as an example, and we're going to call this objects, right? Because it's going to still be in my objects module. Okay, cool. There it is. And inside my objects module, I'm going to export, right, my scene class scene, capital C, S, right, as an example, as my convention. There it is. There's my closure. I don't have anything yet. I need a constructor, because I'm going to have a constructor for my scene, right, for now. But my scene doesn't mean anything like this. I mean, it's nice words, but I want my scene to inherit from my CreateJS container. So I wanted to extend my CreateJS container class. Okay, I want to use my regular container and add additional features to it, right? And I want to be able to add a container class in CreateJS allows me to add other display objects into it, right? So think of it that way. So I want to add display objects like a label or a text object, a button, whatever. I want to add those objects into my container, and then I'm going to add my whole container onto the stage. Now my container is going to expand to fit everything that's inside of it. All right, that's what containers do in CreateJS. So if my scene has a bunch of objects and they're the size of my whole screen, as an example, it's okay. My container is going to expand to fit everything. Okay, so it's not a certain size. I don't have to declare the size of my container. So how do I code that? I code it like this. So scene extends the CreateJS.container class. That's what it does. Okay, cool. Whenever I extend or inherit from another class, and I have a constructor, I need to call the super class, right, with the call to super. Now this is different in different languages. For C#, we use base, right? For Java, we use super, right? Same thing here, super. And in my super, we know that my container doesn't have, it has the empty constructor. There isn't anything that it takes. My container actually doesn't have a parameter, right? We just declare a container. It's like almost like another empty array, right? That's what it is. So that's all I need. I need a call to super. So I need this piece. So again, let's just do some commenting while we go. So I'm going to say, this is my scene class, right? Scene class. Okay, cool. This is my constructor function, right? So here's my constructor. Okay. I know that I want to mimic what I'm doing here in my main objects here, the stuff that I've got going on. And I'm going to pull this in for a second so you can see them. If I go back to my core game.ts for a second, notice I want to mimic what I'm doing here. I need my init function to stay. This init function has to stay because this is the initialization of my whole game. So that's not going to move. I'm not going to pull this into my scene, right? Or in my scene class. My game loop, though, I want to be able to say whatever my scene is, whatever my scene class is, dot update. I want to have my own local update in my scene so I can put stuff to update in my scene class, not here in my main game loop. I just want to reference my scene update in here, okay? In my main, there won't be a main like this in my game.ts anymore. This will be my state changer, right, which will be down here. The same kind of thing you see down here, this change state function. That'll be here. I'll redeploy this function here, right? That's what I want to do. Okay, cool. So some of the stuff is going to have to move out, right? For example, some of this functionality here. Okay, let's go back to my my scene class for a second. I haven't completed it yet. Okay, so what I'm saying is, I need something called a start function. I'm going to call it start. And by the way, I'm asking the folks at Unity to forgive me because I'm going to use the exact same naming structure for my stuff here. Start is going to return void for me, okay? Start is going to return void, and it's going to be a public function, a public method, if you will. So I'm not going to put the keyword function when I make a class. I just have to put the keyword public. So public start void, and then it's going to be basically something that's going to go inside of here. Okay, here's my start function. All right, I also need, in my scene class, I'm going to declare that I have an update, right? I'm going to have an update function, okay? So this is for my class itself, my scene class itself. Think about my scene class almost like a blueprint for all other scenes. Or what would it be called in Java or in C#? I don't have abstract classes, but it would probably be called an abstract class that I'm making, right? Almost like the superclass of superclasses for all scenes, right? So I want a start method, and I also want, aside from my start method, I also want an update method. So public update, right? Which is also going to return void. Okay. So those two methods I'm going to have. Okay, cool. Right? So I have those two methods, and this is going to, in here, I'm going to put all my stuff from my scene class. So I'm going to instantiate or add in here all game objects to my scene in this method. That's what I'm going to do here. And this one is going to update, right, game objects in my scene. That's what this is going to do. So in here. Cool. So that's what this my scene class will do. It's just a blueprint. Notice that there's nothing inside of it. I'm just creating a container, if you will. So I can call a scene class. Now, I need a scene class for one reason. I want all my scenes to inherit from my scene class. Why is that? Because then they're in a is-a relationship with all my scenes, right? So even though they're different kinds of scenes, I have my menu scene, and I have my play scene, and I have my game over scene, they're all scenes. So I can test for that. I can say if I have a scene, which it would be, right, if they inherit from the scene class, that means that I can use the scene keyword, right, which I couldn't do if I didn't have a superclass for them to inherit from. I'm almost creating a hierarchy first before I create my other actual scenes, right? So example would be this state, which is the menu state. I'm going to change the state into scenes. I'm going to wipe the state out, these states. I'm going to change this. This is the old way I was doing it. I'm going to change them to scenes, right? Scenes. And each scene, example, my menu scene, is going to inherit from my scene class. And my game scene is going to inherit from my scene class, and so on. Okay, cool. So do I need to put anything in here into my scene class at all, right? All I'm doing is inheriting from it, right? Well, one thing I do need to do after I do my start method, so I've got my start method, I'm going to do a couple of things, right? When I declare my scene class, I automatically what's going to call it, to have a container. So my container is almost like instantiated, if you will. When I instantiate my scene class, I'm really instantiating a container that can hold game objects. The only thing I want to do in my start method is add everything, my container, to my stage. So that's what I'm going to put in my start. So in my start method, I'm going to put in stage, which is my global stage, dot add this, right? And if it's not add, it's add child. Add child this. There it is. So what does that mean, right? And what does this refer to? Well, this refers to this object, the scene, right? So inherited across my scene at some point, right? I'm going to add child this. This is what I want to do. But here's the question for you. Do I want to do it here? Do I want to do it when I call my start method? Because I'm going to override this thing, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to override my start method, and I'm going to override my update method. I'm going to just wipe them out and call them again. That's what I'm going to do with my scene class. And then that begs the difference. If I don't have an abstract class, this is cool. This is what I want to do, right? but do I have to declare them here? And the answer is I'm just using them as almost like creating a, I'm kind of making almost a contract for all other objects that inherit from scene, okay? When I say contract is I've declared the structure, and if I create another object of type scene, it's going to inherit my structure. That's what it's going to do. And then I can override it. All right. So even though it says this start, it's going to add this to the stage automatically when I declare the object, right? I'm going to override it when I declare my class anyway. I'm never going to declare an object of type scene. I'm going to declare an object of type menu, right? I'm going to declare an object of type game or level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever. But I'm never going to declare this object. This is just my super class, my abstract pattern, if you will. Okay? That's what this thing is. Same thing with update. My update, I'm going to call update, right? But there's nothing going to be in it. I'm going to leave it empty for now, like this. Okay? Bear with me while I do this. So I'm going to press save, and I'm going to transpile. So cool. I have my scene object, my scene superclass, right? Now, instead of states, notice I have a states folder, right? Let's rename this folder to scenes, right? Because I want to create my scenes module, right? Okay, let's do that. So right click and I'm going to rename, right? My folder now is going to be called scenes. There it is. So there's my scenes module. And inside my scenes module, I have something called my menu.ts. You should have it as well. Notice that the module is states. I want to change this. So module isn't going to be called states anymore. It's going to be called scenes, right? So in my scene, I want to declare my instead of exporting a function, do I want to export a function here? No, I don't want to export a function. Let's keep this for a second. I need this structure. I'm going to refer to it. But what I want to do in my menu, right? Let's just space down here. I want to instantiate a new class, right? So I'm going to export my new class. That's called menu with a capital M, menu, right? And what I want to say is my menu extends, right, my scene class. So objects.scene. Now notice that I haven't completed my module for my scene class yet, but I will, okay? What do I need to do before I continue? But this is, I want to show you the way we're doing it here so you understand where I'm going, right? It's a hierarchy that I'm creating. The top hierarchy is my container class, which is part of create.js, right? And then I make a scene superclass. And then I make my scenes that are subclasses of my scene superclass. That means each of them has an is-a relationship with scene. That means I can test for them. I can say, are you a scene? Yes, I am. But I'm also the menu scene, right? Are you a scene? Yes, I am. But I'm the game scene, right? And if it's a scene, I can use them in my finite state machine, which we're going to create. Okay, cool. I've missed a step. And here's a couple steps, actually. Here's one step I need to add. I'm going to go to my index.html. And inside my index.html, before, right, or after I do all my objects, one of the last things I'm going to add in here is my scene object. Scene, I'm writing these objects as if the other objects have to exist before they can be put into them. So I want to have my scene before I make all my scenes, okay, but after all my objects. And I'll tell you why. Because I want my scene to know about all the other objects inside my objects modules. Okay, that's what it is. So the order would be like this. Script, right? And I want to put source. And we're going to say scripts, objects, scene.js, right? So there's my scene.js object. So now I've done this piece. Okay. Remember that there's one piece I'm missing. Right? I got to go back to my core module, my core folder. Underneath my core folder, I have a reference.ts file. I'm going to go in there. And again, underneath all my objects, but before my states, which are going to be called scenes now, right? I want to make a new reference. So reference path is equal to up one level objects and then scene.ts and then backslash, and then angle bracket, right? And I'm doing this. If I don't do this, I don't have a proper module. Remember, this is completing the module loop. I make a module, I use an export statement, I attach it to my index.html, and then I make a reference to it. Those are the steps I need to take. If I don't do these steps, not going to work. right? Okay, cool. Let's fix up this. This is different too, right? So my menu TS is, this is good, right? But notice now it's scenes, not states, right? And it's capital M for menu, not lower m. All right, let's try this out. So I'm going to go back to my index.html, and instead of states, notice that my states has to come after scene because this new menu scene has to know about the scene class, right? So this changes from script states to script scenes, and menu.js stays because it's a menu.js. Okay, cool. So I just changed this piece right here. Okay, now next, I've got to go into my my reference path again, my reference TS under my core module, right? And I'm going to change this from states to scenes. There it is. Okay, cool. And I'm going to transpile everything. So now I've made all my references and connections. I have my first menu scene, but it's not complete. Let's check this out. So in my menu scene, I want to declare a constructor, right? And when I declare a constructor, I got to call the superclass. What superclass am I calling here? The scene superclass, right? That's what this is calling. Here's my constructor. So constructor. Okay, and I also want to declare this as my menu scene. So let's put that in there as some stuff. So instead of my menu state, right up here, it's my menu scene. That's what it is. Okay, cool. My menu scene, my constructor. I need a couple more functions, yeah, to adhere to my contract. One of them is my start function. So public start, right? And it returns void. And notice if I do this, I'm overriding the start method that comes with my default scene. I can do that by just by redeclaring it like this. I don't have a keyword like override. I don't have that word, right? Doesn't know what that is. That doesn't exist yet in TypeScript. It will one day, but not yet. Right? So all I have to do is just redeclare. Okay, cool. So my public start void, I'm going to add my scene to the stage at the end. So I'm going to say stage, right? Dot add child this, just like I did before, because I need to put that in. Even though if it was included in my other scene, in my other function, I put that in so you can see what it does. But I really need to put it in here, right? So this is my start method. Right? That's what this does. And this is also, these are all public methods, right? So these are public methods. There's going to be many of them for my scene. There we go. And the other one I need is update. So public update void. It's not going to return anything, but in my update function, I'm going to update my scene. Okay, we're going to do that in a second. Let's go back to my menu for a second. Notice that there's a bunch of stuff I did here before. I did a container. I don't have to do this anymore because when I declare my menu as a scene, it automatically does this. It automatically instantiates container, right? My hello label, all the stuff I added in here, I still got to do all this. I don't have to do this anymore, stage.addChild, because I'm doing that in my start method, right? So I can get rid of all this stuff now. So all this stuff that's in the bottom of my scene that I saved just for safekeeping, I don't need it anymore. I can just get rid of it. Right? And I'm going to scroll up so we're making our scene object. Now we haven't instantiated my scene object yet. I need to do that. Right? And that means somewhere in my game.ts file, eventually I have to instantiate my scene object. Okay, there we go, or my menu object. Okay, cool. Well, let's go back to my game.ts file because I want to move some of that functionality out. Right? So first I save, then I transpile, and I'm going to go back to my game.ts file here. And I want to take this stuff that I have in main, this stuff here, and I want to take all of it, hello label, stage, all this kind of stuff over here, and remove everything. So just get rid of it all, right? And kind of cut it. And I want to go back to my menu, right? And I want to paste it in my start. Right, here's my start method, and we'll clean it up in a second. I'll paste it, and we'll right-click and go format code. Here we go. Okay, I don't need this, right? Or I do need this. Do I need this or not? My hello label. I do, but am I adding it to the stage directly? Would I ever add anything directly to the stage here when I have a scene class? And the answer is no. I would add it to the scene. So what do I change? Instead of stage, what do I need to put here? this, because this is a container. And so I can add my hello label to my container, and then I'm going to add my whole container to the stage. Right? It's almost like I have a container within a container. My stage is the main container, and my scene is the container that I'm adding to the stage. My scene can contain other objects, right? So think about it this way. When I launch my scene, when I instantiate my scene, it's running. It's got its own game world. And when I want to, I can kill the whole container and wipe away all the objects in my scene by just destroying it. Whoop. So I create it when I go into it in my menu, and then I destroy it. This is good from an encapsulation perspective because each scene is its own game world, right? It has nothing to do with the other game world. It's compartmentalized because it's an object. Okay, cool. So this is the hello label. Well, this is cool, but that means hello label, this hello label here, that's a global object. Do I have to make hello label a global object anymore? No. So I can go back. This is great. That means I can start getting rid of some global objects here. This is a global object before. I can get rid of it. So I can kind of cut this out, and I can go back to my menu, right? And I can go over here, and I can declare it as an instance member, right? And it doesn't have to be public anymore either. I can make it private, which is good. It's good encapsulation. All right, so how do I do that? So I'm going to go up here before my constructor, and I'm going to kind of put a space in there for private instance, variables or members, whatever you want to call it. Here they all are, right? And I want to paste that thing that I just cut. So paste. But I don't need the var keyword in a class, right? I just need what type is it? What type is it? Is it public or private? It's private, right? And it's called hello label, but that's not right because my hello label, if it's private, has to have an underscore. Therefore, right? And by the way, these are all wrong anyway now, right? I have to do this, underscore, hello label. That's just to keep with my convention. And it's of type create.js type text for now, but we're going to make it type label eventually, right? Okay, cool. How do I do that? Well, instead of my hello label being like this, it's this dot underscore hello label that I got to use because it's referring to this private object up here. Now, it's part of my class, all right? So this changes, let me just give you some more space so you can see everything. This changes here to this dot underscore hello label, right? This dot underscore hello label. Let's do that. So I'm going to take this dot underscore hello label and just duplicate that. Just replace the hello label there like this, right? And the same thing goes here. So all I'm going to do is just replacing those words. Clear? So I've created a private variable that belongs to my class, and all I'm doing is I'm declaring an object of type text that I'm adding in hello world to and configuring properly, like we did before, right? And I'm adding it to this container, which is my scene, right? That's all I'm doing. And then I'm adding my scene to the stage. Okay, cool, cool. I got my public update function, and I haven't used it yet, right? This is really important, my update function, because this is where everything gets updated. My scene updates here. So I put that in there. Scene, my menu scene updates here, right? I want to keep that in mind because I still got a piece that's not working yet. Let me show you that piece. If I go back to my game.ts file, notice how I have my hello label, which is a global object that I used to have, in my game loop. What do I want to put in my game loop? Not any private object like this. I want to update my scene. I want to call my scene update here, right? So let's take this piece first and configure it. So I'm going to cut it out. And I'm going to put it back into my menu, right? And it's going to be inside my update method of my menu, right? Let's put that in there. And now, of course, I can't use hello label. It's got to be this dot underscore hello label, right? And now it's configuring my hello label. But my update is never called so far. This update method is only for my scene. To test this basic functionality without a state machine, I want to make a menu object, and I want to update the menu object inside my game loop. That's the easy way to test to see if my menu, this whole idea that I have, my scene, works before I do any kind of other things. All right, so let us transpile. Let's go back to game.ts. And in here, notice that I don't have anything in my main function anymore. I'll leave it like that for now, okay? Bear with me. So I want to declare a global scene, right? For now, to keep it simple, I want to do this. I want to say var scene lowercase, right? My menu lowercase, sorry, is equal to what? It's of type scene, right? So I'm going to say scenes, right? Scenes dot menu. That's what my menu is, right? Have I instantiated my object yet? No. All I'm doing is declaring a reference. I'm declaring the shape of my scene, this menu scene, as of type menu. That's what it is. But I haven't declared it yet. Here in my main, this is where I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, in this particular case, I'll say menu is equal to a new scenes dot menu, right? That's what it is. And I have to use the empty constructor notation like this. Cool. Once I've done that, I've created a scene object, my menu scene. Okay, that's cool. Here in my stage, where it's before stage update, right, and between stage update and the curly brace, in here, I'm going to add in menu dot update. And my menu dot update is going to update my menu scene. So every time, every frame, it's going to call my update function that exists in my menu object. So it's going to work. It's like I'm just going back a step. I'm going into my object scene, my menu object, and I'm calling my update function. Now inside my menu object, inside my update function, I'm calling the hello world rotation, hello label rotation. So every time I'm calling update, I'm actually rotating my label, which will be the exact same effect that I've had. But in this way, I've compartmentalized my menu into its own object with private variables that are not on the global scope. The only global scope variable I have right now, other than my setup for my create.js, is my menu object. That's it. Let's see if I'm right. So I'm going to save, transpile, and let's run it locally before I update to GitHub, because I made a lot of changes, right? So let's do that. So let's go locally here. I want to test it out. In Finder, in your case, it would be Explorer, and I want to look inside my state machine and double-click my index. If everything works well, then I'm going to have this rotating thing go on, but I don't have it going on. Why? Let's refresh and see what the problem is, because I'm going to do some troubleshooting here. What's the problem? Why is it not working? I've called my scene, right? I've instantiated it. Oh, could be transpile. Let's try transpiling. Maybe that's it. So I transpile. Maybe that's it. Transpile. Good, 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 good. Go back here and then refresh, and still nothing. Let's try and see what my problem is. It'll tell me my problem, by the way. Here's my console. What is my problem? It says, cannot read property rotation of undefined in my menu.js scene, right? It doesn't understand what rotation is of undefined. That's good. That means my object was instantiated, and I called my update, and it rotated my hello label. It's trying to rotate my hello label, but it doesn't understand what my hello label is. Right? Would that make sense? Let's do a further test to test this theory out, okay? Because somehow it's not getting there, right? So my menu, did I do all my steps? That's my first question. So let's go back into my, my Visual Studio Code and check my index.html. Do I have a menu scene in here? Yes, I do. Does it know about the scene game object? Yes, I do. Yes, it does. I have my label and all this stuff. All these other things are here. I'm good. And I know about my game.ts. So this piece I did right. Let's go into my reference file. Did I attach my scene to my reference file? Yes, I did. Did I attach my menu to my reference file? Yes, I did. So I knew all those things are good. In my game.ts file, do I have a reference to my menu? Yes, I do. Did I create a menu object? Yes, I did. Here's my menu object right here. And in my menu object, I'm calling my update method. Cool. I'm tracing it. I'm going back to my menu object. Do I have a private hello label? Ooh. Private hello label. Okay, cool. Here it is. Did I declare my hello label somewhere? Yes, I did. Did I ever call my start method? No, I didn't. I have my start method, but I never called my start method. Where could I fix this so it's always called? I never have to call it in my constructor. Where can I fix this so I never have to call my start method in my constructor? Ever. Not in my menu, not in a subclass. In the scene class. So I go back to my scene class. right? Bear with me. I know I'm a mad scientist right now, but bear with me. I'm going to go into my scene class, right? And notice here in my scene class, I have a start method, right? I'm going to call it here after my superclass. I'm going to say this.start. And I'm going to do it here in my superclass because it'll always be part of my constructor unless I overwrite my constructor, which I wouldn't have done. I'm just inheriting, right? So that means every time I do this, it'll run it. Okay, let's see if this works for us. So I'm going to transpile. I'm going to go back to over here to my scene and refresh. And now I have this back. So what did I do? Why did this suddenly start working again, right? Because I'm going to refresh my scene. So let's just kill this thing and go back out here for a second. I want to show you this again. So right click, open. There it is. And I want to show you my inspector. On my inspector, here's my console. I got no errors now. Why? How did this work? And how did I confuse the crap out of all of you now, right? Because my scene class is never instantiated. My scene class, I'm using it as an abstract class. It's an abstract class is a shape, the blueprint of all my other scenes. I'm never going to instantiate a scene or an object that's called of type scene. I'm going to refer to it, I'm going to inherit from it, but I'm never going to do it. I could have done the same thing if I wanted to here in my menu scene, right? In my menu scene, I could have gone into my constructor and called start, because start is just a method. It needs to be called in order for it to launch. I made a method, but I have never called it, so it'll never get there, right? And that's what was happening. I was calling an update on a method that was never called. Now my update, right? Now my method, this start method, is always automatically called, right? And it's beyond my control. I can't stop it because it's part of my superclass, which is of type scene. Okay, I know it's hard to absorb, but know that I've created my first scene, guys, right? And this is the first step that we have to do to create my state machine. Okay, let's update GitHub because we've added some, this is a good function. We've just added a whole piece of functionality, a new feature. I've created my whole new scene architecture, if you will, right? Let's do this. And this is going to be the basis for all other games you make with me here, right? So project or assignment 2, you're going to use this state machine, right? Assignment 3, state machine. Final project, state machine, right? If you do this, you're going to create beautiful, clean games that work across any platform, right? Without any memory leakage. All right, let's talk about this. So I've got my scene class, this is good, and let us update GitHub, because GitHub needs an update. All right, so how do I do that? The easiest way, of course, is to go into my console here and go git add dot. Git commit -m, and I'll say created scene superclass, and that'll and my first and my menu scene and menu scene. It's a lot of big things. I could have probably done another commit in between these two things. I could have made my superclass first, made a commit, and then done my subclass and make another commit. But here we're okay. So I've done this. Okay, good. Now I'm going to go git push origin master. So if you haven't got that, if I was too fast for you, go up on GitHub. You see all my changes. Now that I've just updated, guess what's happened? Azure's updated, right? So let's check Azure to see if it has the latest and greatest, right? So I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to kill this, right? And I want to get to Azure, and I know that it's, you know, COMP397 state machine.azurewebsites.net, and I should be able to get there, and it should still spin. Right here it is. And to check to see if I've got the right version, I'm going to right-click, inspect, right, just to make sure it hasn't cached, because sometimes it does a lot of caching. And I think it's the latest version, but it's really not. And I haven't made really any changes to this thing, so it looks the same. So console. Now it's giving me this error. This favicon is part of the Azure deployment. It has nothing to do with me. I don't have a favicon, right? So don't worry about this error. If you get this favicon error, ignore it, right? You can, if you refresh, it's gone, right? If I go to sources though, this is what I want to look at, scripts. Ah, look, I got my scenes. That's good. That means it took my latest structure. My scenes menu is there, right? Or my folder. And then also underneath my core, under my game.ts, or my game.js, sorry, notice that I have, in here, I'm calling a new scene object right here. This is good. That means Azure has the latest version of my code. That's why I've just checked for it. Let's add really quickly another scene, and we're going to make it the main game scene. All right. So here's my hello label, and I want to make my main game scene. I don't have a button yet to go to my main game scene, right? But I would need one to make it work. But I want to have a menu, and then I want to go to my main game. Quickly, to do this, I already have some structure for you, right? So under scripts, under objects, I have an object called button. It's an actual button class. There it is. Now this has a specific path to my buttons. And we're going to change this later on, where instead of it being an absolute path like this, we're going to make it a relative path with when we have our asset or a preloader that we're going to build. Okay, but in my assets, notice I have images and I have my start button. Here's my start button. And that's the one I want. I want to kind of call my start button. I want to create a new start button in my menu scene. So let's do that first. So in my menu scene, I'm going to go into my menu.ts, right? And instead of my hello label spinning around like that, let's stop it. So we're just not going to include an update here, right? We're going to make the update empty right now. But I want to add a button, right, into my scene. And it's going to be, I'm going to use my button class. So how do I do that, right? Well, I know my button class is of type button. So here it is. I've created this. I'm going to say private, and we're going to call this start button, right? And it's of type objects.button. I know that, right? And in here, now that I have declared it, I'm going to say, well, that's cool. I'm going to say, well, this dot start button, right, is equal to a new objects dot button, and it's going to ask me for a couple things. The path string, which is going to be start button, I'm pretty sure, right? My x coordinate, config dot screen, right? Dot center x, right? I want to do that for sure. Center x. Here's my center x, and then my y number. Now that's going to be different. So it's going to go like center y plus maybe it's going to be down a little bit, but plus another 20 or something like that. So config dot screen, and I'll fix this in a second. Dot center y. Oops, if I can type properly. How about that? Center y. Right, there it is. And I did it totally wrong. It needs to be like this, right? Center y, right? And I want to add like 20 pixels to it, so 20. There we go. And if this is really long for you, let's break it down a little bit. So I can do one of these with this. It doesn't matter. Remember, JavaScript doesn't care, and so neither does TypeScript, right? I can kind of compartmentalize it so you can see all of my options. So it's going to be start button, config.screen center x, and config.screen center y plus 20. And plus 20 means that's where it's going to be down. That's my start button. Okay, cool. I want to add my start button to the stage. So I'm going to say this dot start button, right? This dot add child start button. This dot start button. So I add it to the stage. Cool. Now the question is, will my start button actually click, right? And let's transpile first and check it out. What does my start button do? Well, in order for me to check my start button, because I've already wrote it for you, right? If I go back to my button class, here's what my button class does. It basically tells me my x and y coordinates. It assigns a width to my button of 150 pixels and a height of 50. Ooh, that's bad. It means I got to move it down a little bit more because I only moved down 20, which means it's going to go over the top of the hello label. So let's go back and change that. So menu, that's got to be plus 50. Because it's going to be at least 50 or 60. Let's say 60, right? It's got to be 60 down from the middle, right? All right, and then let's go back to the button for a second. See what I'm doing here, right? And my registration values for my button is the center of the button itself. That's what it's going to be. I've got two events. I've got my mouse over and my mouse out event. That's cool. So when I hover over my mouse, I've got those two mouse events. Hover over and hover out. Those are my buttons. That's cool. I need one more event. I need my mouse click event, right? Because if I click the button, it's got to do something. So when I click the button, I want to say game started. That's what I want to say with my menu, right? And I want to change my hello label, hello world, to game started. Let's see if I can do that, right? So if I go to menu, I have to write an event listener for my button, right? How do I write an event listener? Well, I've got my button called start button, and I've got my public start method. I want to go outside of my public start method down below my update and create my event listeners. So here's on my event, or my event handlers, sorry, my event handlers. Now you can make this any way you like. I'm doing it this way, and then I'll upload the code for you so you can see what it is in its final form, right? And then I'm going to make a public. I could make it private too if I wanted to, because it's just an event handler. But let's make it public for now, right? So we'll make it public, and the event handler will be called start button click. Actually, we'll make it private. Private. That's why it should be. So private underscore start button click, right? And I'm going to pass in a type of event, which is of type create.js .mouse event, right? Because that's just the event type that we're gonna deal with, okay? And when I click the button, whenever my button is clicked, I have to declare the listener. This is my handler first, right? When I click the button, I want that the hello label, this dot underscore hello label dot text, to change to, you know, game started. So it's going to be the big label is going to change, right? So the first time I click the button, okay, cool. I don't have a listener yet. How do I attach a listener? Well, it's very simple. Here's my button. Underneath my button, I'm going to add it in, right? Oh, that's my label. Hold on. Just take away some of these spaces here so you don't confuse you more than I'm confusing you. Don't worry, you'll get it eventually, right? Here's my start button, right? I want to say this dot underscore start button dot on. That's why you create a listener, just like we did for the tick event, my ticker, right? And then I declare the event type, click. It's the click event. And then I declare I call the handler or the callback function. I can write this anonymous if I want to, but I'm not going to. I want to make a callback function, which is this dot underscore start button click, which I just defined. And I'm also going to pass in a reference to this, which is my context. Whew. Right? So I've made a button through the button class. That's what this is. I've added it to my scene. I create an event listener. Here's my event listener. Start button event listener, right? And then I have my start button event handler down here that handles every time I click this button, it fires off, it does this game started. It'll only do it once because I don't have any other conditions in here. So once it does it one time, even if you click it again, it won't do anything because it's just, all it does is change the game started. And it'll keep on trying to change the game started over and over again. All right, let's try this out and see if it works. So I transpile. Let's try it locally, right? So I'm going to go into my local files first. So let's open this up. I'm going to go down into here, right-click, reveal in Finder, and then I'm going to go double-click on index.html. And here's my hello world. Oh, man, where's my button? Let's refresh. Where's my button? How come it's not there? Right-click, inspect, and it's going to give me this cockamamie failed to load resource, error file not found, users, Thomas, desktop, assets, images. Desktop? It shouldn't be desktop. That's not right. How come it's going to desktop? Let's see where what it's giving you, right? So let's check out my button class for a second. And it's going to Thomas. That's a like a direct path. That sucks. All right, let's go in there and fix that. So go back into my content. We're running out of time. I'm going to go into my scripts. I'm going to go into my button class. And over here it says where it says up1, up2, assets, images, and then path string plus path string. Well, that's neat. But what happens when I go up 1, up 2? Well, where am I? I'm up here, I'm objects. I'm going to go up 1 to the scripts, up 2 to assets, and then down 1 to images. This is a problem because this is absolute pathing. And that's why I'm getting an issue, right? It doesn't understand what this button is. It doesn't know where that path is. It's trying to find it. But when I go up 1, up 2, here inside this method, this path is wrong. It's not giving me the right path. So how do I fix that? I can't use absolute pathing as the answer. And what I can do is, I want to add this because remember, button is just a bitmap. That's what it is. It's a create.js bitmap, right? So when I attack the superclass for the bitmap, I want to look at the assets images. So here's assets images, assets, images, button, start button. There it is, start button, dot ping. That's what it is. So that's how I build up my string. So when I look at this, I'm like, yeah, that should work, right? That should work. But the way it's interpreting it, because I'm running it locally by double-clicking, right? It doesn't know that path because I'm running it from the root. But I bet if I deployed it to Azure, it would use absolute pathing and find it. Let's see if I'm right, right? So that's why it's not working. All right, so if I go here, and first of all, I want to go git add dot, and I'll say git commit -m. I'll say updated menu. Thank you, my menu scene. And then git push origin master. And when I do that, it pushes up to GitHub. And when it pushes up to GitHub, it goes back onto Azure. And when it goes onto Azure, I can go here and refresh, and not here. If I go here and I refresh, and if everything goes well, I should have my start button. See? There's my start button. If I hover over it, everything's. If I click start, then it goes game started. Right? Now, the reason why it did what it did, why I couldn't find my start button, is because the pathing was wrong. Because I double-clicked on it. I didn't run it in a server. I ran it locally as a file, right? I double-clicked my index.html. That's why I got that error, right? And I got to fix that later on. In later iterations of this thing, I got to fix it so it does what it's supposed to do. And it also does doesn't do another couple things. My hover effect is missing, and I'll tell you why. Before you guys all go, please give me one more minute of your time, right? I'll show you it. If I go to my game.ts, so game.ts now, right, which is inside my core. One thing that I'm missing from my setup, right, is my button. I've got to enable my button events, right? So I do that here before my main, and I can do that after stage as an example. So here's how I do it. So I go and I go create.js dot enable. If I go try, or if I do mouse event, that doesn't work. How about if I go stage dot mouse? Yes. So I want to do enable mouse over. If I do enable mouse over or enable mouse events, right? And I can specify a frequency number, which I want to do like around 20 frames per second, right? So I can say enable mouse events. Okay, one more thing here. So once I've enabled mouse events, you're going to have the code in a second. I want to go here and git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say updated game.ts. There we go. Git push origin master. Okay, when I do that, it goes up to my files. Here on Azure, I refresh. Hopefully it refreshes pretty quick. Yay. Now when I hover over, no, it's not refreshed yet. Because I want to basically, it should give me the hover effect, and it doesn't. It's okay. We'll fix it next time. So next time, remember, I've created my menu. You've got to create your menu, your game states, and each of your game states are going to be for each of your nodes. Each of your nodes in your hierarchy, right? When we go back to the code, right? Notice on the bottom of my game.ts, way on the bottom here, I have an example of what a state machine would look like. And here I want to switch out my menu scene with my play scene, or scene 1, or node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4, and so on. Okay, that's what we're doing. Okay? And that's the hierarchy that we have. Okay? So this is what you need to build. You need to build something like this, right? For your dragon game, or your assignment number 1. Questions around this before we go? I know we're running a little late. Yes?
So it's recording the scene on the abstract class. So why can't you call it an input class?
Come over after and I'll explain it to you. Come over. I'm gonna close this down and then come over and I'll tell you specifically, okay? Okay, I'll see you guys next week. And then please email me if you have any problems. Thank you.